And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous Friday from very high above all the insipid and puerile and just downright terrible forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program.
So I'm sitting there thinking, how would I describe the press? And the first word that popped in my head is sucky. And then I remember that I'm supposed to be a polished politician by now. So I'm going to suggest vacuous.
Vacuous? That's a good one, too.
Yeah.
Perfidious is another form.
Yeah, vacuous is sucky.
So why do I introduce the program that way? Well, because most of the media, and by most I mean like all except me, generally are just entirely biased. That it's not really news. It's what I term opinion journalism, which is kind of a compliment to them, an undeserved one. But really, it's not news. It is opinion, and that's pretty much all you get. And they sprinkle some facts in there so that you can lead you to believe that what they're reporting is news. But it's not. It's opinion, which, this show is entirely opinion, namely mine. And the reason you watch it is to listen to what I think of, what's going on. But the rest of the news media, unless, of course, there are some local papers that do some actual journalism. But let me ask you this.
Name one.
Well, if you go to, by journalism, covering local stories, right? So you get the crime beat, you get the sports beat.
The sports beat is often very well covered. Thoroughly. I don't know how accurately.
Well, most local papers, it's 3 pages of sports and a half a page of something that might count as news.
Which, in today's world, that's plenty because the other stuff moves way faster than they do.
Oh, yeah. And you know what's funny? Running, in this job, you do a story, and then 3-4 days later, you're doing your next show prep or figuring out the next story, and you think, man, it was so long ago that I covered Steve Freeze or covered Chuck Gray. But when you look back, you're like, oh, crap, that was just the day before yesterday. But you're right, Ken. Things move really, really quickly. And when they don't move all that fast, well, then it's kind of a slog. But anyway, welcome to the program. It's Friday. We have had a busy week on the program. And we got one more interview for you today. We're going to talk to a candidate for Secretary of State, Rachel Williams. She'll be with us at the top of the hour. So that'll be, I haven't talked to Rachel for a really long time. And, when she was in the House, technically she still is in the House, but I talk to her pretty frequently, but it's been several months. So I'm looking forward to that interview. That'll be at the top of the hour. She's got an interesting race. Robert Short, C.J. Young, and then there's some other guy that who knows who he is. But it's one of those races where
if you don't know, nobody knows.
I know, right? There is a piece about him on the Turkey Vulture this morning. But anyway, so we're going to talk to her at 9 o'clock, and but we're going to begin. Oh, wait. It's Friday, which means... The button won't push. Oh. Maybe. Ken, what are you? You're killing me.
I have sat here and pushed this button like 6 or 8
It's
times.
There we
Open
go.
Line Friday.
Finally, better late than never. That's right, my friends. It's finally Open Line Friday. This is the day where we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. See, normally during the week, if I have the phone lines open, well, you kind of have to talk
And
about
if the button works.
Yeah, if the button works. If we can actually start Open
Jeez.
Line Friday. But if you want to be part of the show, the phone number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. That'll get you directly to me, and whatever's on your mind, whatever you want to talk about, we'll just go with it. Now, I mean, there's no guarantee on how long that lasts, but we'll at least attempt to talk about it. So anyway, Open Line Friday. We got Rachel at the top of the hour, but
Do you have caller ID on that thing?
I do, yeah.
Yeah,
Usually-
yeah.
kind
They
of.
got to go through the screening process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, by the way. Did you know that a lot of radio stations use this software?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty. I don't know if you've ever called in, but what you'll hear my voice, and then it'll ask you to tell me what you want to talk about, and then what happens. And I guess we can show. It doesn't
Yeah,
really
you
show
can show it if you want.
too much.
If the button will work.
Yeah, if the button will work.
Jeez.
Yeah.
You want to show that?
Yeah. So here's what it looks like, and when you call, one of these little things pops up, and it just tells me what you want to talk about. So
That's cute, Jerry. That's your cue. When you call.
right. All right. So anyway, we begin this morning with a piece in the cow pie. Now, Ken, what do you let's start here. What do you think of political endorsements? Do you think they're useful? Do you think you give a crap about them? What's your opinion?
Well, obviously, it depends on who they're coming from.
Right. Obviously.
It could be the kiss of death.
Gail Simmons.
Yeah. I guess I can't say anything opposed to them because I've endorsed Rachel. I've endorsed Brent Bien.
Okay.
Endorsed Tom Kelly. And they've accepted those endorsements, so they must have thought it was worthwhile.
Okay. Do you think that they have any effect whatsoever?
Coming from me, yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously coming from you. But here's the thing about them. I mean, we always like to hear, hey, the people that I like this person. You know, that's why when you listen to programs like Beck or Hannity, and he's got somebody on his show, a politician, and is pretty favorable commentary. Like, oh, okay, well, if Sean Hannity likes this person, well, then they must be a good candidate. But there's the other side of it too. You know, not so much anymore, but there was a small group of people that if you got an endorsement from them, the very first thing you did is go find a microphone and say, I don't even know this guy. I don't like him. I don't know why he's endorsing me. But
Reed Reisner.
Yeah, right. Or like if you got an endorsement from the ladies of The View, that would be kind of bad.
Well, you mentioned Gail earlier.
Yeah, Gail's
very
bad.
similar.
Right? You don't see her coming out and saying, I endorse. Well, actually, she kind of does if you pay attention to her Facebook page. But there are some endorsements that I think are really kind of the kiss of death. And you probably don't want them, and you probably shouldn't accept them. And if you get them, you should run as fast as you can to the nearest microphone and you denounce whoever it is. Now, most of those, if you are claiming to be a Republican, and if you are claiming to be a conservative, then you should probably not accept those endorsements. I'm just saying. Let me give you an example, right? If you're this guy, if you're Steve Freeze, right? And
Where did you get one of those?
Oh, I've got like 500 of them at home. Or, if you're sending out mailers like this, notice this word right here where it says conservative, right? If this is the image that you're wanting to portray, then, there are just some endorsements that you probably would want to, run away from, denounce at the first available opportunity. You probably should not even accept them at all. Well, Steve Freeze has done the exact opposite of that. There's a piece in the Cow Pie this morning where it lists off all of the 19 endorsements that he's received, and most of these most of these are people that you've already heard of on the program. Let me give you a good one here. Now, Steve Freeze is endorsed by Eli Bebout.
Oh, goody.
Oh, goody. No, who is Eli Bebout? Well, when he was in the House of Representatives, he was a Democrat. And he actually switched parties, became a Republican, so that he could become the Speaker of the House. Eli Bebout is the very definition of a redcoat. Deemer True, one of the funders of most of the redcoats in this state. And then there's some great names like Dan Dockstader, Jared Olson, and Bonehead Brian Boner. And what about Jamie Flitner? Jamie Flitner is the author of one of my favorite sound bites that I hardly ever use because it has to be in the right context. But there was an important bill about no, it wasn't important at all. It was an amendment to pay for a walking path around the Cheyenne Frontier Days Fairgrounds. And she gets up on the floor and she says, "Vote for this. It's for the children." But Jamie Flitner, huge giant radio. Don Burkhart, Ron Michaeli. Oh, there's a blast from the past. He's one of the guys that sued the Uintah County Republican Party. Rosie Berger. Oh, if you're from Sheridan, you remember Rosie Berger.
If you're in the house, you're never allowed to forget because she comes and visits every year.
Every year, and they let her speak on the floor of the house.
And the other side gives her a rousing round of applause every time.
Now, Wyoming Business Council mouthpiece, Dave Kinski. Yeah, that's great. Matt Michaeli. Matt Michaeli was the redcoat chairman of the Wyoming Republican Party that got us fined by the FEC for $58,000. Total redcoat. But there's a list of 19 insiders in this whole thing, and none of them are conservative. Now, if you are endorsed by all of these people, and if all of your mailers say that you're conservative, and if you've sat in this studio in that chair and claimed to be a conservative, this list of people, you should denounce them right away, because this is a big flashing neon sign that we have some serious ideological problems. So anyway, more on that in just a second. But since it's Open Line Friday, I want to take a call. All right. Welcome to Open Line Friday. Who am I talking to? Hello, you're on Cowboy State Politics Live. Who am I talking to? Oh, I need the cord. That's why. All right, welcome to Cowboy State Politics. Are you with me?
Hey, David, it's Mark. I'm with you, sir.
Oh, hey, Mark, how are you this morning?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. What's on your mind?
So, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the Weston County and the Americans for Prosperity, too, in two separate pieces.
Excellent. Well, you guys got a big mess going on up there. Now you don't have a county clerk. I don't know. I don't know what to do with Weston County.
Yeah, and I'm not even in Weston County. I'm in Crook County.
Oh, that's right.
And,
you're in Crook County.
Yeah, and so it becomes an even harder issue for us because I'm not even a resident there. But we're impacted by that because our great Supreme Court decided that our representatives should cross county lines, even though the Constitution says otherwise.
Right.
So we've got our House district and Senate district impacted by the goings on in Weston County. And so, the biggest question I want to ask, David, and I want to kind of put it out there for folks that ask this question is, where this story begins is, Mike was trying to, or the clerk that was in there was trying to figure out how to operate the machines, and he invited Ann Slagle over to kind of help walk through that process. And apparently the mistake they made is that they did it behind closed doors, right? So this is before the logic and accuracy test. And this story's been shared. It was actually shared in the original Facebook post that was pretty hostile towards Mike. It was commented that the person received a phone call from somebody telling them to come down and see that. Who made that phone call?
Yeah, I don't know. It would have had to have come from inside the clerk's office, I would think.
That's the question. And so yesterday I attended the Weston County Republican Party meeting on this, and it was mentioned by the chairman of the commissioners there that he's asked the sheriff to look into this. He doesn't think anything's criminal is going on, but the sheriff will be looking into this. So I hope the sheriff would look into the source of that phone call. Who made that phone call to that person who's not related to any party at all, who made that Facebook post that blew up and caused what I would argue this entire situation that we're in?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. But I think before we go any further, we need to point out that Ann Slagle is an election judge. She's one of the people that runs the tabulation machines. And the other thing, and I read that Facebook post, and it's pretty hostile towards the now former clerk, Mike. But just about every single person in that office was on the ballot in one way, shape, or form, including the deputy clerk. And so the Post made a big deal out of Ann Slagle being a Republican precinct woman. Well, it's Weston County, and there's not a lot of people that live there. And the likelihood is if you're involved in the election or, that you're going to be on the ballot, either at a precinct level or for some other office. And so, I mean, I think it was a pretty dirty thing. Two, I don't know how else you could get the tabulation machines going except behind closed doors. And three, Ann Slagle is an election judge, so she's absolutely qualified to do that job. So, I think there's a big mess going on over there, Mark.
There is, and the people that are trying to clean it up, I'll give them credit. I think they're doing their best to clean it up. Obviously, being in Crook County, I'm genuinely concerned about it because the last election has been proven to be a mess, right? And so we're not going to stand in their way. We hope that they get everything cleaned up and they run a clean election. This is a mess. And, what I'll say is that, and this is an important point. In our county, there's a big battle going on between Ogden Driscoll and Chip Nyman.
Oh, yeah.
And
fun times.
Yeah. And Ogden has made a big point about saying that social media, there shouldn't be any nastiness. There shouldn't be any accusations, that it should be fair. And I'll point out that one of the commenters on that original Facebook post is Ogden Driscoll's wife. Yes. And she is very hostile and very aggressive. And so, you can say one thing out loud, but what's actually going on behind the scenes, that becomes very questionable when your name's signed to it and you're being the exact opposite of what you claim to want to do. And so I wanted to put that out there so people are thinking about it and asking questions about it, because I think those are two important questions. Number one, who made that phone call? And number two, if the candidates are going to say they're not going to be bashing people on social media, maybe their immediate relatives should follow that too.
Well, Augie needs to follow that too. But he signed the Peacemakers Pledge, right? He signed the Let's All Play Nice pledge, and obviously that didn't take. He's got a piece out this morning in the Cowboy that's got a giant bald-faced lie in it. We're going to cover that one a little bit later. But Augie has never been the person that is in any way civil. That guy is, if there's a political point to be made, he doesn't really care how he makes it, whether it's the truth or whether he's, getting his wife to comment. You're talking about the very definition of a political opportunist. That's Augie for you, man.
Yeah. Well, it leads to the next part, if I got time, was the Americans for Prosperity. So up here in Crook County, our mailboxes have been flooded with mailers paid for by Americans for Prosperity. I've had 2 door hangers and a door knocker from Americans for Prosperity supporting 2 candidates in the race and opposing 2 other candidates in our primary race. And the problem I have with it is that Americans for Prosperity, we kind of jokingly call it Americans for Poverty.
Yes.
They're supported by the Koch brothers. It's a national organization actually funded not in Wyoming. It's from out of state. Yep. So it's an out of state dark money fund, which these candidates are supporting, are blasting the Freedom Caucus and claiming that that's who they are, even though they're getting donations. And what's more troubling about it is that in the mailers, they're saying one thing about the candidates, yet on their own website that they advertise on the Cowboy State Daily website, it heralds all of the accomplishments that the legislature did this last year.
Yes.
So, and they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth, depending upon who they're talking to. And it's deeply disturbing. And I actually wrote a letter to the editor in a local paper pointing that out. And the next week I had a lovely, and I'll call it a love letter, written by Tyler Lindholm to me, basically saying, be quiet. You don't have a right to speak because you're not from around here. That old saying. And so I find it deeply troubling that so much money is being spent in our local elections from a national organization that can't really identify what it stands for and who it stands for and what it actually means.
Well, did you see the piece from the Institute for Legislative Analysis that came out day before yesterday, showing the ideological makeup of the candidates that Americans for Prosperity is supporting? Did you see that?
I did, and it.
Uh-oh, we lost him. Hey, Mark, if you can hear me, let's hear. Let me try to call him back. No, we dropped it. Okay, so hold on. That's weird. Fun with technology, man. Okay.
I lost you, David, there.
There we go. There you're back. Sorry.
Okay.
Fun with cell phones and technology this morning.
So did I get cut out, or did you hear that?
No, go ahead and repeat that. We missed what you were saying.
What I was saying is that, yeah, I did see that message, and apparently that AFP donates kind of right alongside of the George Soros Open Society Foundation.
Yes, they do. Yep.
I mean, that should raise a big question, and I know you do a good job covering this, David. What's disturbing to me about this election cycle is that everything is so nakedly obvious. This is literally conservatives versus liberals. This isn't gray area. It is black and white. And, it goes to the conversation about the Republican Party endorsing candidates. And people have asked me behind the scenes, do I support it? And I do support it. I actually think the Republican Party should say who they endorse, because it's their party platform. They have the right to do that. But what's interesting about it is the people screaming the loudest against it. And what the folks screaming the loudest against it are the people that I would argue are not necessarily the most conservative folks in the state.
Absolutely.
And so so what it shows to me is, and it may show to others, I don't know, this is my opinion, so I'll share it with you. It shows to me that Wyoming is really not a red state. It's actually probably pretty close to a purple state. The only thing is that all of the Democrats have been masquerading as Republicans, or in the term you like to use, the redcoats. And now we're kind of forcing them out in the open. So I think this endorsement process from the Republican Party was probably the greatest membership drive for the Democrat Party that's ever occurred in the state. And I welcome the opportunity to be able to debate on fair grounds, knowing that somebody's a liberal and somebody's a conservative, and then allow the voters to decide.
Well, two things there. One, you're right, that the best thing that could happen to Wyoming politics would be a stronger Democrat Party. And by that, I mean, all of the Democrats that are in the Republican Party, they need to go home. I mean, because we've got lots of evidence that a lot of these people that run for office, Tyler Lindholm is a really good example. They're not really conservatives. They're not they're not really Republicans, and they're definitely not conservatives. And if I'm going to run a piece later today on the Open Range Record showing exactly who Tyler Lindholm is. And it's not a pretty picture. I mean, the guy was pro-COVID lockdowns. He openly praised Mark Gordon for everything he did in COVID. And I mean, there's Wyoming equality stuff. He's good friends with Sarah Burlingame. There's a lot of stuff about Tyler Lindholm. But he's the guy running Americans for Prosperity and sending out mailer after mailer after mailer, attacking people who legitimately are Republicans. And, it's such a shell game that it's, I don't know. I mean, I can look at the stack of mailers that has been sent out on Ken's opponent's behalf, and it's probably the same amount that was sent out against Chip Nyman, would be my guess.
It'd be my guess, and I don't know if your listeners know how much those mailers cost, but when they get one, that's about $1 in their mailbox.
Yeah.
And so they can simply do the math and say, okay, how many registered Republicans are in my county times $1 times every mailer. My guess is just in Crook County alone, they've already spent $50,000 to $60,000 on mailers for those two candidates. And that raises us a really big question. Are those candidates now beholden to that organization that has spent $50,000 to $60,000 on their behalf?
I think I would have to say probably yes. All the time, Americans for Prosperity implies that conservatives are beholden to, their donors. There was a pretty good piece on a hit piece on Ken was last week, earlier this week, that he's beholden to Dan and Carlene Brophy in Jackson, so they imply the same thing. But when you're and we're not talking those donations, we're not talking 50, 60,000. We're talking like 3. And when you spend 50 to 60, probably in upwards of $100,000 on a Senate race, I think there's some legitimate questions there. Okay, Ogden, what are the what was the deal that was made with Americans for Prosperity? Because there's got to be. I mean, that is a ton of money, Mark.
It is. And where this kind of leads into another piece, David, if it's all right. So one of the things that's happened with this endorsement process is there's been a lot of screaming about it, but on the backside, and your listeners will see this when they go to the ballot box, all of a sudden there's going to be more than one name for their precinct committee seat. In fact, there's going to be multiple names running for the precinct committee seats in these county parties. In our own county, we have that. And what happened was when folks realized that all of a sudden the party was taking back the power, magically a whole bunch of people that I would argue are not exactly conservative are like, let's take over that party and we'll take back that power.
Yes.
What I will say out loud here is conservatives don't care about power. Conservatives care about what's right. So you may be able to take over the Republican Party Central Committee seats. You're not going to shut up the conservatives. All you're going to do is free us. Because right now, in the role that I sit in, I'm kind of handcuffed a little bit from what I can say and what I can do. Take that role away from me and watch what happens.
And just to be clear, Mark, you're the chairman for the Crook County Republican Party. So, I mean, we didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah, I am. Yep.
Well,
and I'm speaking on this outside of that role, so just to clarify.
I wrote an opinion piece or an editorial on the Open Range Record about this whole endorsement process. And, every other private political or private organization, doesn't even have to be political, has the ability to endorse candidates. The Chamber of Commerce, they put out their candidate slate, the Every Association, the Realtors PAC, the Wyoming County Commissioners Association, they've all got their slate. They all issue endorsements. So why is it okay for them to do it? And by the way, most of those outfits operate on taxpayer dollars. And it is apparently it's entirely appropriate for those organizations to make endorsements, but a private political organization that is not funded by taxpayer dollars somehow can't. I mean, it's an obvious violation of their First Amendment rights, both in the freedom of speech and the freedom to associate. Now, you and I differ on whether or not the party should endorse. I think, I don't know if I made this clear. I don't think I mentioned this in the editorial, but I think for like higher level races, I think it's entirely appropriate for the party to endorse their candidates. So by those races, I mean like governor, Secretary of State. However, I think the party should be very cautious in wading into, some of the state legislative districts or state legislative races, and certainly county level races. I mean, I think that there needs to be a bright line drawn between, okay, these are the races we're going to endorse. These other ones ought to be left up to that district. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so as part of the bylaw changes, it does just that. So the state party itself can only endorse the top 5 and then the U.S. Senate and U.S. House races. The role to endorse anybody else under that actually falls down to the county parties, and it's an optional. It's not a shall. It's a may. They may endorse. And I can tell you, I can only speak for the county I'm in, Crook County. We chose not to endorse anybody. We felt like our voters have enough information, and it was our role as a county party not to endorse, but to rather inform. And so do candidate forums and such like that. So that's what we chose to do. It really comes down to, one of the things that I've heard a lot from folks who haven't been paying attention is that they're like, oh, this is a top down thing. It's being driven by the big donors. Actually, no, it's a bottom up. It's coming from the grassroots up. This was pushed through from the bottom up, and it gave the power to those county committees. So I think then at that stage, because it's related to the county committee, the voters can make a decision. If that county committee endorses, do those voters actually align with that group of folks, or do they not? And they can make their own decision.
Yeah, the problem is the major concern I have with that is now the genie is out of the bottle, and there is the people that we're dealing with, obviously, Tyler Lindholm, the Redcoats. I mean, I've got to shoot, man. We could go on for days. Now that they can endorse, I think you might see them endorsing precinct positions. You'll see them endorsing county, city council positions. And so, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. But anyway, Mark, I got to run, man. Thanks for calling in, and I'm sure we'll be talking here soon.
Have a good day, sir. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the program.
I'm Karen Weber, and I'm running for House District 5 in Goshen County. We need to decrease the size and scope of government. Expenditures have increased 59% under Governor Gordon. We need to decrease residential property taxes because you cannot own your own home if you can be taxed out of it. In terms of the economy, right now, agriculture ranks below the media in the Cowboy state. Agriculture GDP has decreased 22% in the last 7 years, and that is unacceptable. It's very important for Goshen County that we support our agricultural producers. That's what I want to do as your next representative. I ask for your vote on August the 18th. Paid for by Weber for House District 5.
The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
You won't find him leading a horse out of a barn or leaning against a corral with the sun setting behind him, because Wyomingites don't need a candidate who creates a good photo op. What you will find is a hard-working, experienced leader who believes Wyoming should always come first. A conservative grounded in strong values and steady principles. Ready to lead Wyoming the right way. Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com.
Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Open Line Friday. Welcome back to the program. If you want to be part of the show, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Whatever's on your mind, go ahead and give me a call.
What number do you call if you don't want to be on the show?
Well, then just don't call.
Oh, that's simple.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You know, there's a lot going on. I mean, we're in the middle of the election. Well, actually, there are 18 days until the Republican primary election. So just a few days under 3 weeks. And, you know, I expect that things are going to get a lot crazier. You know, there is always an August surprise in Wyoming politics. That's probably what the whole Brent Bean, smut article was all about, even though it was total horse crap. But there's probably going to be some other stuff that comes out that we just haven't seen yet.
I can hardly wait.
I bet that you are super excited. But here's the other thing that I haven't seen yet exactly that I'm kind of worried about. AI stuff. I think that it would be it might be political suicide to do this, but I'm really kind of pleased that I haven't seen any serious AI stuff come out yet. And maybe the media attention on elections is so high that it would be, first it would be stupid for a candidate to do that, but I'm really impressed that we haven't seen that yet. So before we talked to Mark, we were discussing the endorsements from that Steve Freeze has received. And to sum them up, it's a bunch of insider redcoats. That's exactly what that list is. Any list that has Deemer True, Eli Bebout, Rosie Berger, Dave Kinski on it, that's a list of redcoats. And if it were me, I wouldn't have released any of those endorsements, especially when, I don't know how many of these I have at my house, but it's a stack of them. It's definitely 10, probably 20, closer to 20 of these flyers. And almost every single one of them has the word conservative on it.
Yeah. In that discussion, he was guessing, how much money they might have spent against Chip.
I think
I think he's pretty close on that. I know that for me to send out a postcard to my district, anywhere $3,700, $4,000.
Yeah, I figured, $3,500, $4,000, depending on what you do with it.
Depending on how you count and who you count, there have been at least a dozen anti-Pendergraft or pro the opponent mailers just in the last month here.
And what does that tell you about a candidate? If you're the guy that can show up at a forum and knock the crap out of, or at a debate and just knock the crap out of your opponent, and you're going door to door and your people know you, do you really have to send out that many mailers? I would argue you have to send out some, because you got to have some sort of pushback. Ken, you had a mailer that was a big warning sign.
Yeah, and
I thought that one was pretty good.
That one was pretty successful. A lot of people have commented on that's one that they actually did read. So thank you for the inspiration, Holly. I was planning on one more, which is what we usually do at the very end. And man, just with the flood of stuff and going out door to door and talking to people, and they're saying, I don't read them. In fact, a couple people said, I don't even read yours. I just throw them all away. I decided I'm going to set that money aside. There may well be an August surprise, and then we need to do something to respond. So there needs to be a little bit in the war chest for that.
Well, and you're kind of in a different position too. You've got this program like every day, which, by the way, I need to commend you. That I was actually talking with your opponent, week before last, I think. It was before I wrote the Americans for Prosperity piece. And I told Melissa, I said, do you have any idea how many opportunities Ken has had to go after you as his opponent? And she goes, well, no. And I said, well, it's every Tuesday through Friday for months. And I said, do you know how many times he actually has? And she says, no. And I said, once. That's it. But, the beauty...
It ain't over yet.
Right. The beauty of this program, though, is we get to talk about, issues for 2 hours every morning.
Yeah.
And your people know where you're at.
Part of part of the value of an incumbency and why they're more difficult is the work that you do door-to-dooring, the messages that you've sent, the forums, the debates, all that. That's all cumulative.
Yeah.
And build a relationship with people out there that is hard to break down. And it works both ways. Trust me, for me as the outsider trying to get in here,
that was different.
That wearing out boots, as we pointed out before, I'm still out there doing the work.
So a good example of this, of what we're talking about, I think, is John Barrasso's race 2 years ago against Reed Reisner. Okay, now Reed, not a formidable opponent, was never going to win that race, spent a heck of a lot of money for nothing. But as I recall, I did not see any more than maybe one mailer from John Barrasso, and I think I saw a couple of billboards. I think there was one between here and Casper, but he really didn't do anything, partially because, he was going to win anyway. Why waste the money? But two, he's been our senator for so long. Like you said, there's that cumulative work product that he's amassed, and however many years he's been in there. Whether you agree with him or not, that's what you saw, and he didn't really have to advertise. And that's one of the benefits of being an incumbent. When your name is already on the ballot, you don't have to fight for it. And people have been probably voting for you for a long time. And so
that doesn't mean I'm not fighting, though.
No, not at all. But what it means is you've got a definite advantage for that. So one piece I wanted to mention in this ridiculous Steve Freeze is endorsed by all the redcoats piece in the Cowboy. Listen to this quote. Freeze doubled down in his interview, saying his polling shows a vote for anyone other than him is a vote for Gray. Quote, I really want to unite the Republican Party and then to focus on making lives better in Wyoming. I need 70% of Republicans who are not fans of Chuck to consolidate and will win in a landslide. So his campaign strategy ultimately is, I'm not Chuck Gray. If you don't like Chuck Gray, vote for me. And if you don't vote for me, Chuck's going to win. That's his strategy
it
right
worked
there.
For Joe Biden.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean,
he sat in his basement.
And here's the narrative that really irritates me. And I'm going to play a video here in just a second. That this you'll hear this over and over and over. But it's that Chuck has a lot of negatives. Okay, well, if you're going to make that claim, what are those negatives? What exactly are you referring to? And you'll notice it's never specific. What they're referring to is that Chuck Gray has no problem throwing a few punches in any race and on any issue. If he sees that there's something that he thinks that needs to be changed, then he's in front of the legislature. He's getting interviews on this program, on the competition, elsewhere, saying these are the reasons why we need to do this. Another good one. Last election, there were in any election, there's any number of complaints that are made. Some of them frivolous, others pretty serious. Well, Chuck went, put them all together. They investigated them and then referred the ones that had merit to the Attorney General, who did nothing with them. My point being is that one of the things that I think that Chuck's opponents don't like about him is that there can be no argument that he is effective. I mean, you cannot look at Chuck Gray's record and say, well, he's just not effective. That's just not true. He is and has been the most effective Secretary of State that I think we've ever had. Maybe running a close second in the opposite direction was Ed Buchanan. I mean, he was pretty effective at screwing things up. But Chuck, in getting legislation passed, in moving the ball forward towards election integrity, it's been Chuck. And that is what they don't like about him. And so when you hear the argument, oh, Chuck's got a lot of negatives, that one, there's no specifics to it. And two, what they're actually referring to is that he's enormously effective.
So I'm going to tag off that just for a second before you go to the video. That's the same deal with the Freedom Caucus. When's the last time in the last 3 or 4 years that you have read a political story and the Freedom Caucus was not mentioned.
Well, yeah.
You know, and when you get right down to it, the Freedom Caucus is less than 20 people.
Yeah.
And-
Well, it's more like 12 to 14.
And
honestly.
well, it is not half of the state as someone. But that's the key is being effective. And
Well-
some people say, well, we don't like your style. We're getting it done.
Well, okay. So there's a couple of competing narratives going on there. The first one is that to try to say that everybody who is conservative is Freedom Caucus, because the guys on the other side, they think that they've been able to paint the Freedom Caucus with so many negatives. And if you want to run a fun experiment, get on social media, and the very first comment you see that is anti-Freedom Caucus, just say, name one legislative thing that the Freedom Caucus has done that's wrong for Wyoming. Just one. Just name one legislative thing. And often what you'll hear is, well, I tried to defund the university. Okay, well, a lot of that was PBS. Second, the university has not been doing what they agreed to do with DEI and all of those things. They have not gotten rid of all the woke courses, which if you take them in Wyoming, you're not going to find a job in that area. Your favorite.
They're extremely top heavy with administration.
Yeah. I mean, they waste a tremendous amount of money. You'll hear Wyoming Business Council. Well, okay, but Wyoming Business Council is picking winners and losers. They benefit whomever their pals are. They waste a tremendous amount of your money. So, challenge people on those and say, tell me exactly what they've done wrong, and let's have a debate about it. Now, on the cow pie this morning, Tom Lubnow, and I hesitate to even play this video because it's really hard to listen to, but there are a couple of really, really interesting points that he makes in here. But when I play the video, try to look at this and say, is that really Jabba the Hutt or is it actually Tom Lubnow? Because you'll see what I mean here in just a second. But there's a couple of really important points. One of them is the Chuck Gray thing, and the other, at the end of it, they talk about the hit piece on Brent Bean. So go ahead and play it. We'll do a stop and start with it.
He's saying, I'm the only one who can beat Chuck, vote for me, which is a different strategy than I'm the best candidate, vote for me. And maybe I had a poorly worded line and they call him about hold your nose and vote for me. I didn't mean anything bad about Steve. He's a fine candidate. He's like any other candidate. There's some things I like about him, some things I don't. But it just seemed an interesting campaign strategy. What he's saying is, I know that you love somebody else, but I'm the only one who can beat somebody who everybody doesn't like. And everybody doesn't like Chuck. He just has a lot of negatives, and taking advantage of a candidate's high negatives seems like an interesting campaign strategy.
Okay, pause for a minute. Okay, so there it is, right? He's got a lot of high negatives, and Steve Freeze is trying to take advantage of that by getting a bunch of redcoats to endorse him. Okay, well, I don't know if that's taking advantage. I think it's revealing exactly who he is, which again, when he was sitting in that chair, it was an entirely different story that we heard than getting endorsed by Eli Bebout and the Redcoat troop. But the point that Lubnow is making is that, well, there's a lot of high negatives with Chuck Gray. Okay, what are they? I mean, let's be specific here. I don't know what they are, except, of course, that Chuck is super, super effective. So there's the first piece. Go ahead and hit play again.
Anyone but Chuck, the ABC strategy, as Tom points out in the column. I think I don't mind that as a strategy, a campaign. If I was running the Freeze campaign, I mean, there is an element of that because certainly Chuck has brings some negativity. But what are we to make of Reisner and Freeze both?
Okay, pause for a minute. So Jake in the cow pie says that he doesn't mind the whole anybody but Chuck. Okay, where else have you heard that? Just think back in your little memory bank. Could it be the Never Trumpers? This is the exact same strategy that was used against President Trump to say, well, he's so terrible, we have to elect anybody but him, which tells you the opposite is actually probably true. I haven't seen any polling numbers to verify this, but just me watching everything, hosting the debate in Casper, I would say one of the reasons why this list of endorsements came out, which I think it was a really poor choice, but anyway, one of the reasons is I think it's probably because Chuck is in the lead of this thing. But you see that the Cowboy's position is anybody but Chuck Gray. Okay, go ahead and hit play, Ken.
If that's the only guy they're concerned with, those two.
Well, Freeze released a poll that said Chuck and I are in the lead at 16%. And if you don't want Chuck, vote for me.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, that's just an interesting campaign tactic. It's something I'd never seen before.
Yeah. It is interesting. Do you think, let's go back to those Brent Bien and the Daily, who was it? The Daily Mail? You got a UK. I mean, the Daily Mail there's not a hit piece, smear piece, yellow journalism that they won't touch. That's kind of their thing.
Pause.
But
all right. So what you just heard, they'll publish anything. Yellow journalism is their thing. What is yellow journalism? Well, it started back in competing newspapers, and newspapers would just make stuff up about candidates, and then later, when the race was over, or after some time had passed, then they would issue a retraction. But it was completely made up stuff. That's what yellow journalism is. When you inject your opinion and you portray that as news in a sensational and inflammatory way. That's what the Daily Mail is. They are the National Enquirer, the Weekly World News of British media. And the other point that they're about to make here in just a second is that, wait a minute. So somebody in a campaign, in one of the gubernatorial campaigns, went to a British newspaper, a British tabloid, to fence this story to them. Do you really think that newspapers in England are focusing on the Wyoming governor's race? Do you really think that's what's happening?
That actually kind of supports Brent Bien's argument the other day that we're against global powers.
Well, and I think that's kind of taking it. I mean, he's probably right, with the data centers and windmills and all that stuff. But I think what is more likely here is that one of his competitors says, hey, we were going through his Facebook account, and here, you guys should do a story. That's what happened. And so, all right, continue playing.
Think somebody placed that? Some other of the 9 candidates?
Well, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And a newspaper in London, England, or, well, I don't know, a tabloid, whatever you call them, in London, England, writing about a Wyoming governor's race, it seems like an unlikely occurrence unless information was spoon-fed to them. Now, I can't prove that. I don't think anybody can. As a journalist, that people call you all the time and say, hey, you want to hear something? And me as a columnist, I get that all the time.
The
reporters get it all the time. And sometimes it's newsworthy, sometimes it's not. I guess a gubernatorial candidate.
You get the point on this one. That the whole Brent Bien story is really, it's a nothing burger. It's a non-story, and it's an August surprise. And at the end of that video, that's what he says. Well, this smacks of an August surprise. And what Tom Lubnow means by that, which, by the way, many of the things that he said in that video, I happen to agree with him. That doesn't happen very often. But in this case, it's true. In Wyoming politics, there's almost always a story that comes out, or a couple of them, in August, right before the primary, that is of questionable veracity, that may or may not be true, but it's sensational enough that the hope is to tank the candidate. Now, the last thing I'll say on this is we are in a very different political place than we were, I would say definitely 10 years ago, maybe even 5. But it used to be that if a story came out before an election that a candidate, I don't know, cheated on his wife, well, they were done, right? That campaign was over if that happened. Or another case, if right in the middle of an election, a candidate got a DUI on the wrong side of the interstate while they were blackout drunk and they eluded police for 8 miles, that would spell the end of their political career. But it doesn't anymore, because I think the media is so pervasive, and that there are so many sensational stories, and we are just overloaded, that a lot of these things I think that we just write off. And I think the other, and perhaps this is, maybe I should have led with this one, is I think that where our culture is at, those things no longer shock us anymore. The what I alluded to earlier about, hey, if a candidate was found to be cheating on his wife, well, that's not such a big thing anymore. I mean, it is to me, but in the media, well, how many celebrities cheat on their spouses? How many politicians cheat on their spouses? I mean, the divorce rate is well over 60% in this country. And I mean, I think that speaks to where we are as a culture. And so when you have a candidate that is upstanding, believes what's written in the Bible, is a genuinely good person, it's pretty easy to smear them, which is what I think is happening definitely with Brent Behan. And I think the same could be said for the Chuck Gray campaign. Chuck, I mean, if you don't know much about him, I mean, he is a devout Catholic. I've hung out with him several times, and the guy is always above board. And I think that's probably one of the bigger things that his opponents dislike about him, is there's very little that they can come up with, except, of course, that, he's got a lot of negatives. Yeah, a bunch of hogwash. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Rachel Williams, candidate for Secretary of State. Back in a minute, my friends.
The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Well, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada. Straight to hell. Iceland, France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy, state politics is only getting stronger. This program is expanding way faster than any of the redcoats would ever really want it to be. Well, the truth is they don't want it to be around at all. But it is Wyoming's most listened to political program, and I'm David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99%.
Yeah, this program is expanding faster than Tom Lubnau's waistband.
I don't even want to be associated with that guy. Anyway, well, welcome back to the program, my friends. I'm joined now by Rachel Williams. Rachel is running for Wyoming Secretary of State. Rachel, been a long time. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Good to see you guys.
So it has been so long since you've been on the show. Why don't you take a minute or two and tell my audience about yourself?
Well, thank you. So I'm Rachel Williams. I currently serve as the state representative for House District 50 in the People's House, and I reside in Cody, Wyoming, happily married to my husband, Chris. We have two beautiful children. It honestly, David, it's been such an honor to serve in the House of Representatives. I have had a tremendous amount of victories, but also it's been an honor. There's been so much to fight for. In my time in the legislature, I've served on the Judiciary Committee for one term as vice chairman. And also I've chaired the House Labor, Health and Social Services Committee as well during the past term. Served on Management Audit Committee, which essentially is now kind of an oversight committee as designed to be, and the Rules Committee as well. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration and a master's degree in criminal justice administration. I've worked law enforcement. I've worked as an executive director of several nonprofit organizations in Park County and served on many boards and many coalitions in Park County. I'm a devout Catholic, and I love my community. I love Wyoming, and I'm excited to run and to be your next Secretary of State.
All right. So I guess the obvious question then is, why'd you decide to run for Secretary of State? I mean, there's a whole slew of offices that are up this year. Why that one?
So the Secretary of State, obviously, it's within the executive branch of government in Wyoming, a very important role. I have seen what happens in the state of Wyoming when our elected officials fail to be held accountable to the people that elected them, the people that they serve. And given my time in the legislature, I have always answered and worked on behalf of the people that I represent. I believe that Wyoming needs a true leader, a true conservative Republican in this seat. We have been very privileged to have a Secretary of State that has fought on behalf of the people, not only for election integrity, but for businesses across Wyoming. And so my hope is really to carry that torch and also bring my own skill sets to the position.
Okay, sounds great. So if elected, what are the things that you want to do when you get into office? You got some priorities, things you want to change? Give me the list.
Yeah, so as I've been campaigning across the state for several months now, I've realized from the people of Wyoming that election integrity, voter integrity is still very important to the people. Restoring election confidence is going to be a top priority of mine, and carrying out
like
the will of
Weston
the
County.
What's that?
Like Weston County.
Yes. Yeah, there needs to be some work done there. So I think that working with the legislature this upcoming session is really important when it comes to election integrity. The current Corporations Committee has been re-examining several bills. I think there's about a dozen of them that they've re-examined over the summer that didn't pass last session. Given my legislative experience, I would love to continue to work with the legislative branch of government and our county clerks on those bills and providing input and legal advice as well. As far as businesses, the Secretary of State is in charge of all the business filings for the state. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that more in detail and some of the drawbacks, but really my role or my desire really is to champion know your customer standards to make sure that that we protect local entrepreneurs and that we eliminate any red tape that stands in the way. So I want Wyoming businesses to thrive. I want to be a champion for the business environment that Wyoming has. We have low taxes, we have low regulation, and it's a tremendous asset for businesses and entrepreneurs. And so we need to maintain that as well. And there's several things that we can do, and I'm sure we're going to talk more in detail about some of the drawbacks.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of questions lined up for you, but the Secretary of State does a whole bunch of different stuff, most of which people are completely unaware of. In your mind, what is the number one job of the Secretary of State?
So the Secretary of State is right under the governor, right? So you're serving as the in the executive branch, and so of government. So aside from being the chief elections officer and the head of managing business filings, you also serve on what we call the top five. You're part of the top five, and you serve on like the SLID board. And so that is a tremendous responsibility. And you make a lot of decisions on behalf of the people of Wyoming in that position. And there are statutory responsibilities as well that come along with that. So we need to make sure that we optimize how our state lands are used financially, and that we value and grow in the decisions that we make for that. So there's a lot of roles from managing the buck and horse rider to notaries to there's all sorts of different roles that the office.
Do we have a problem with election fraud in the state?
Pardon me?
Do we have a problem with election fraud in the state? Election irregularities?
So I think that Wyoming can, we can pass bills to make sure that fraud is not happening within the state of Wyoming. I think that there's a lot of effort at the federal level by this administration to curb fraud, and Wyoming has a long way to go. I don't know the numbers offhand as to how many cases sit on the AG's desk, but during my time in the legislature, I have seen what's that?
It's at least 16.
Yeah, I know there's a few, and they've been sitting there for some time. However, I think that we can curb it. During my time in the legislature, obviously, I was a part of the Weston County incident, that whole debacle, and watched it unveil. I played a leadership role in that when we discovered and received formal complaints that votes had been disenfranchised in Weston County. And so I acted accordingly, and I think we need to continue to prevent those type of situations.
So Wyoming, like 40% or around 40% of Wyoming's business goes through one address. It's 30 North Gould here in Sheridan. And and part of the reason why is it's pretty easy to set up a business in Wyoming. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. Frankly, you can probably do it in the span of an hour. I mean, if you've got all your paperwork in order. And so we want we want to make it easy to set up a business in the state. If if you're, I don't know, if you've got your own little food truck and, you want to turn that into a business, we want to make it easy to do that. However, with that comes a pretty huge potential for fraudulent businesses. Folks that are out of country that don't have a physical presence in the state. I mean, there's a lot of that that goes on. So let me ask you a question that that I think is super important. We want to make it easy for businesses to open, yet we want to be able to reduce fraud. But where is the line between managing our business filings, making it easy, and preventing fraud? Because I think it's a pretty fine one. So where is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a fine balance. I talked a little bit earlier about the fact that that our low tax and our low regulation business environment is an asset, and we have to protect our state, and we have to fight fraud. I have no problem with that, and that's something that I feel very strongly about. However, lack of oversight is unacceptable. And so you talk about exploitation and fraud, and when we talk about those issues, there's the potential, and there probably has been these type of situations where you get international scammers that come in, and hostile entities, and they operate through these large hubs, so to say, and they threaten our state's reputation. And so my goal as Secretary of State really would be to continue to protect our business-friendly environment for legitimate businesses, and aggressively crack down on fraud. And I mentioned the term "know your customer" earlier. So we need to make sure that commercial registered agents maintain verifiable records. And I think there's a lot of ideas floating out there right now, especially this summer in the Corporations Committee, as they're discussing this and they're hearing testimony. It's no secret that the Secretary of State's office is a very profitable office. It's my understanding that there was about $59 million in revenue alone that office brought in, and about 830,000 total business filings in the last fiscal year. And so that's a huge amount of filings. And so I personally believe, and having looked at other states, and from what I've heard from folks while on the campaign trail, that we need to modernize our system. And I know efforts have been made before in the past. Wyoming needs a Secretary of State that can work with the legislative branch of government. I have that experience. We need somebody that can go forward and talk to the Appropriations Committee about the importance of modernizing our software system, our database. I can tell you that, like, in the state of Nevada, they have a system that they phased out. It was called Project Orion, and they tackled this issue. They got ahead of it. And so we need these tools in order to be preventative. So there is balance, but I think that there's technology out there that can help us do that.
Okay. Now, our current Secretary of State, he has mentioned a number of different election integrity measures that we need to tackle. And then they pretty much run the gamut, from, just cleaning up the voter rolls to draw boxes to voter ID, or tightening that up. In your mind, what's the number one voter or election integrity measure that we need to fix?
Yeah, so I think we need to move to pen and paper ballots across the entire state, every county. I think we need to ban drop boxes. Mind you, there's about a dozen other bills that I mentioned that the Corporations Committee are re-examining, that the next legislative session will probably decide. Hand count. That's a huge, there's a huge grassroots push for that. There was legislation this past session that kind of planted the seed on that. We heard from our president a couple of weeks ago about the vulnerabilities of the machines. And in Wyoming, we use the ES&S machines. I think that our president is doing a good job exposing that. I don't know that there's a whole lot of buy-in in Wyoming, but there is a huge grassroots movement of people, of constituents that want to do away with these machines. When it comes to...
All right. So let me just interrupt you there.
Sure.
So in a lot of cases, in small examples of hand counting, I've watched it, and it takes forever. And these are the people that are allegedly trained on how to do this. And I don't know who is doing this supposed training or whatever. But even in a small election with a couple of hundred votes, I've sat there for 45 minutes, an hour to count a simple election. And so if you're talking about an entire state and we're going to hand count the entire thing, the way that I've seen it done, it's going to be like 2 weeks from now, until we get the election results. So I understand that people are very passionate about hand counting, and I think that there are ways that we can, implement it. I don't know, maybe random. There was the random hand count bill, which I don't think goes far enough. But anyway, so as the Secretary of State, are you advocating for hand counting the whole election, or just different counties or different precincts, or how does that work in practice?
Yeah, so I think having options are important. So let's take a look at the Weston County situation,
Okay.
right? We have a clerk that used the wrong ballots in that election, and so it was human. They went back and they hand counted that election, right? And corrected it. So
right. Small county though.
Right. But if that were to happen in a larger county, you'd have to do the same to verify. So what I hear on the campaign trail is people want to be able to verify that the machines are accurate, right? We know that they're vulnerable. We've heard about their vulnerabilities, and I think in order to restore confidence, it needs to be an option, and it should be a no-brainer that we need to do this when an election has been tampered with, or there is an alleged mishap, so to say. That's the only way to really know the counts.
Okay, now, I mean, the other side
and
of
we
this...
saw that in Weston County.
Yeah, I mean, in that one, okay, I think it worked pretty well. But there again, small county, not a lot of people live there. Now, the other side of this argument is the first couple times I voted, it was with the old, you turn the little switches and then pull the lever, and it punches out the ballot. And then there were no tabulation machines. It was, all right, so the ballots come in. And no, we didn't have any hanging chads, Ken. But, we hand counted them then. And the argument there is, well, how do we know that those elections were accurate? Well, okay, but we've had elections where the vote was close, and the person that, the majority really didn't like, or, the A group didn't really like, ended up winning the election. I mean, there's been lots of cases of those. So it obviously worked in the past. So I don't know why we can't go back to that. And I mean, what I just presented to you was kind of the push and the pull of both sides of the argument. And, the truth is that I think the real answer is somewhere in the middle. Pick a random precinct and let's hand count it, and let's see if we did a good job. I mean, that's just my opinion. All right. So there's a handful of people that are running in the Secretary of State's race. Why should we vote for you?
Well, I would say that there is definitely stark contrast between me and my opponents. We've had the opportunity to debate and in several different venues, and I am the only conservative Republican with a solid conservative voting record. I have a reputation of answering to the people, voting for the people. I bring a unique sense of experience, and I'm a leader. Wyoming needs a true battle-tested leader to serve as the next Secretary of State. I'm very blessed to have the endorsements of our current Secretary, Chuck Ray. He is fully endorsed my campaign to carry out the mission forward, and that is exciting. I have a reputation also of being very transparent. And I believe very firmly in the Republican Party platform. I believe that Wyoming deserves a Secretary of State that is willing to carry out America First values. I know what that looks like. I have had the opportunity to go to the White House on 2 occasions and listen to America First policies and what this administration really wants to carry out and the opportunities that present themselves to states. And so we need somebody that is willing to do that.
Okay, great. Well, if my viewers want to get a hold of you, Rachel, how do they do that?
Yep. So I have a website up. It's williams4wyoming.com. That's Williams, the number 4, Wyoming.com. My cell phone number is 307-250-5008. Call me, email me, text me. Let's meet for coffee. Attend one of my town halls or meet and greets, or attend a debate, and we'll talk afterwards. But I am very approachable, willing to talk. I'm obviously very busy on the campaign trail, so give me a little grace when it comes to responding to your questions.
All right, Rachel. Well, I appreciate you taking the time this morning to visit with me. Keep us updated on how things are going, and good luck in your election.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right. Well, that was Rachel Williams. She's running for Wyoming Secretary of State. And, you know, I think she's right on a number of points that, you know, we do need a person in that office that is that's got a record, that is you know, that has a conservative record. I mean, there's a lot of other people in that race that well, they say they're conservative, but we don't have anything to prove that.
Yeah, some of the things like being in charge of elections, that should be as nonpartisan as possible.
Yeah.
Business management, you know, managing the papers and the licenses and all those things, that should be pretty much nonpartisan. But the slip board, we've seen what we've had on the slip board for the last.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. I mean,
forever,
that's one of the big ones there, Ken.
That is, and that's, to me, is the biggest reason that we need some of these people like she and Tom Kelly in there, is that we can begin to resist the executive.
Now, to be very clear, I did invite Robert Short to come on this program, and you know, it's an interesting conversation. By the way, Robert, I do have it recorded. But he told me that he would come on the program and ask me to email his campaign people, which I did, and I have not heard anything from him. So no doubt, Mr. Short, I'm sure one of your people is watching this program. And so, hey, man, you said that you would come on the program, and you haven't yet. But that goes to, I mean, the same holds true with a lot of candidates. You know, during an election, I try really hard to invite people on the program. And I'll say it again. If you haven't heard from me, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want you on the program. Reach out to me, and I will absolutely give you time on the show. I shouldn't say absolutely, because there are a couple of people that, yeah, they're not coming on this program. Even though, you know, I would love to have the debate. It's just, yeah. There's a few people that are just not going to get time on my show. But Robert Short, you agreed to come on the program, sir, and you haven't been on here yet. All right, so let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue on with the program. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics, 307-374-8989. Give me a call.
The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Open Line Friday, 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989 if you want to be part of the program. Man, this is the day. If you've been chomping at the bit to talk about something, well, then go ahead and give me a call. One of the bigger lies that Ogden Driscoll has told shows up in a column that he just posted on the Cowboy. Now, let me just tell you about this. You know, if you pay attention to Augie's Facebook page, which I wouldn't recommend it, it'll probably rot your brain and damage your faculties, or it'll just damage your possessions because you'll want to throw things, and you'll end up having to replace a window or a TV, and it's just going to cost you money. So most of the time you should just ignore him. But if you do pay attention to him, that guy has a very loose relationship with the truth, and he always has. Now, keep in mind, of course, that he's one of the guys that signed the Peacemakers Pledge, that we're going to be civil, that we're not going to attack each other, that we're going to have a different kind of politics, which all of that with Ogden Driscoll is just performative. The guy is a political opportunist. He always has been. It doesn't matter to him if what he's saying is the truth or not. And most of the time, it's because the media allows him to do that. But he's got this op-ed out, and it's entitled, "What Has Wyoming's Freedom Caucus Actually Accomplished?" There's a whole bunch of things, and we could probably start with the 5 and Dime plan, election integrity. I mean, Ken, there's a lot of stuff that you guys got done that Mr. Driscoll is ignoring. But the 5 and Dime plan was a huge success. I mean, that was a huge accomplishment.
It truly was. And even in the next session, during the budget session, we accomplished a lot. We got some good 2A bills passed through. We got recalibration done.
Yeah.
First time in 20 years.
That's a big one.
It is a big one. And these are the things, so they've got to throw up a smoke screen. But his lies in this article, even for him, are just beyond the pale.
Well, it is, I think that Tom Lubnow hit this one on the head too, that this is desperation season.
Yeah.
That folks are so worried about getting reelected that they're willing to do anything. And more often than not, that's the liberals.
The insulting thing about it is they think that you're too stupid to be able to see through it, or that you're not curious enough to go and check that. So when you get to the doozy, I've got the amendments pulled up on my screen. We kind of just scroll through there and see who sent those amendments.
All 200 of them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, here's the bald-faced lie. And by the way, Augie, you have my phone number. Call me. We'll have a talk. You can come on this program. It'll be fantastic. Oh, wait, that's not Ogden because he only writes stuff in the Cowboy. But here's the whopper. And I'll back up a paragraph here so you can get this in context. And I quote, the House budget proposed deep reductions to state government, including eliminating the Wyoming Business Council, which, by the way, it got a huge cut to their budget, and it was only extended for a year so that they could clean up their act, as if they're ever going to do that.
That was an accomplishment right there.
Oh, yeah. Big one, right? Cutting funding for the University of Wyoming, reducing support for Native American healthcare programs. That didn't happen. That there was no reduction in that.
That is a ridiculous lie.
Yeah. Okay. Denying market-based raises for state employees. Well, when you are okay, let's just put all our cards on the table. If you work for government, you make significantly more than your counterpart in the private sector. I mean, across the board, school, city, county, state, you make more than your private sector counterpart. So don't give me this crap that we're not paying state employees, because we obviously are. Killing fire relief funds and shifting costs to local communities. That's not true either. We gave a bunch of money.
We spent the entire interim figuring out how much was the right amount, and we increased spending. I don't have the numbers in front of me. We increased spending significantly.
Okay, here it comes, Ken. I have some duct tape down here.
Before I do that, though,
okay.
One of the things that he brought up with his idea was to bring in another helicopter.
Yeah.
For fighting fires. And we jumped right on board with that and funded it, and they've got it out working. So what are you talking about, Ogden?
Well, no, you're wrong, Ken. You guys reduced fire funding. Okay, so here we go.
Full of something.
Do you want the duct tape? No. Okay. He says he doesn't need it. If his head explodes, I cannot be held accountable. Quote, many of these proposals were rejected or significantly changed by the Senate because legislators from both chambers believed they would do more harm than good. Sure. Here we go. Speaker Nyman's leadership team had to suspend the rules and add an extra day to cram 200 plus amendments to the budget to cram, and it doesn't say this. There it is. Okay, there it is. To cram 200 plus amendments. Who is editing this crap? Do they not have a copy editor?
He's trying to say that the leadership had to add an extra day, bend the rules to add an extra day, so that we could cram 200 plus amendments down through. So I'm going to scroll through here, and you look at who brought those amendments.
Yeah. Well, just hold on before you do that. Okay. Hey, I know, man, but these things have to be handled carefully. I mean, we have to be very specific about Ogden Driscoll's lies. So, first lie, the House of Representatives did not suspend the rules to do any more work on the budget. That did not happen. That's not a thing. Now, there were some extra days on the legislative calendar that were saved from the previous session. They did use one of those. Was it one or was it two, Ken? I mean, I only remember one extra day. Okay, anyway, but nobody suspended the rules to do this. Okay, so there's lie number one. And lie number two is that it was the Freedom Caucus who jammed these 200 amendments down the throats of everybody in the legislature. Go ahead and put it up there, and let's kind of breeze through here. Oh, there's Representative Yin right at the top. He's definitely a Freedom Caucus member. Look, wait a minute. Whoa, look at all those. Representative William, Chustic, Jarvis, Davis, Cottley, Riggins, Harshman, and there's one from Tony Locke.
Notice how successful they were with those amendments in the beginning.
Yeah. Failed.
Part of Augie's problem is that we spent so much time, we had to have another day on these. Who's bringing the amendments? Who doesn't have enough votes to get them through, and yet they keep
They
coming.
brought the same amendments over and over. So keep going. Clouston, Larson, Wiley, Clouston, Provenza, Williams, Geringer, Washit. Oh, there's one from Jamie Lean. Okay, so now we're up to two. Geringer, Larson, Byron, Lean. There's three. Fornstrom, Harshman, Sherwood, Larson, Harshman, Davis, Campbell, Harshman, Landon Brown. There's one from Bear. So there's four. And you can go through the list. The vast majority of these amendments were not brought by conservatives in the House. They were not brought by the Freedom Caucus. They were brought by the liberal redcoats in the House of Representatives. Shut your lying trap, Augie.
What they were trying to do was put all the spending back in that we cut out.
Yes. Yes. And now, what took a tremendous amount of time is the amendments would come up on, and they would come up on first reading, okay? And most of them got killed. And then we had second reading, okay? And most of those amendments, or second and third reading.
Yeah, second and third.
So second reading amendments, they all died. Okay, not all of them, but a lot of them did. And then those same amendments, weird, they show up for third reading. And they're just slightly changed a little bit to try to get them through. But it was the same group of people predominantly that brought all of those amendments.
And it was also, even though they know that the thing is they don't have the votes to get it passed, they would bring it and frankly waste more and more time. And there was a lot of time wasted on this one.
Yes, and that was there. And here's the thing about the budget is there are deadlines that are set up in statute and in the Constitution that tell you have to get the budget done within this amount of time. And so you don't have the entire 20-day budget session to go through these. However, the more time you spend on the budget, that means there's less time for other pieces of legislation. But the truth is, Ogden Driscoll, I mean, this is a bald-faced, completely untrue lie. That did not happen.
I think we should vow to never use the word truth and Ogden Driscoll in the same sentence.
Yeah. Well, the guy has such a loose relationship with it. And Augie, if you want to come on this program and debate this, you are more than welcome. Now, here's the other problem. That with the open range record, I would never let a piece go through that I knew was absolutely false. I would never let. I mean, it's libel, right? I would never do that. Now, I'm not saying it won't ever happen because I don't, when things are going like really fast, some things perhaps, I guess it's possible that would slip through, but I would immediately correct it. This one is on the number one and we can show it to you here. Let's go to the cow pie. Let's see your opinion, guest columns. Oh, looky there. It's number one right there. And so this op-ed went through and nobody at the cow pie even looked into it to see if what he was saying is actually the truth. And it's not. It is absolutely not true. So, Augie, I know you want to win an election, but lying isn't the way to do it. And Augie's been the beneficiary of much of the Americans for Poverty funding in this election. It's I don't know how many videos Chip Nyman has done about different mailers, but it's been a lot of them. So, Ogden, man, if you want to come on the program and talk about this, you are more than welcome to. You're probably not going to have any fun doing it, but you're welcome to do it. Okay, so maybe we should go to, let's see. Oh, yeah. This is one I wanted to talk about yesterday, and I never got to it. So there's a piece by Wildpile, which, okay, so right out of the gate, you should question the veracity of it. But Wyoming congressional candidates talk campaign finance, roadless rule, and keeping Trump in check. Now, again, the Wyoming Turkey Vulture or the Tribune Eagle, if you just look at their front page, it's very obvious that they, too, are engaging in this whole advocacy journalism. And I hate using that word journalism in there because but I don't know how else to explain it. But it's not news. It's not really journalism. It's advocacy and opinion is what it is. But here's what they say. One of the spicier moments of Thursday night in the U.S. House of Representatives forum came when the 8-person panel was asked about the record-breaking sums of personal and family cash that candidates were throwing into the race and what that trend forecasts for access to office in Wyoming. Instructions were to keep the discourse civil. Panelists who sat on stage in Casper College's Durham Auditorium were told explicitly to avoid personal attacks on other candidates and to address the audience, not one another. And then the very next paragraph is Chuck got in trouble for addressing one of the other candidates. Here's what it says. Current Secretary of State Chuck Gray among the candidates dipping into the family piggy bank. This is in a news article. Okay, dipping into the family piggy bank
used the question to address fellow big spender Reed Reisner, alleging that he had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in false attacks. Then Gray, the Wyoming Republican Party's pick for the seat. Okay, so the whomever is writing this are Mike Koshmirl of WyoFile. Now, again, it's WyoFile, so not really news, not really journalism, has to take every opportunity he can to hammer on conservative candidates, which, by the way, if you're running for office or, well, if you at any time ever have an opportunity to talk to the media, use Ken's advice. When WyoFile calls, you just tell them no. And when they ask why, you say, because you're WyoFile. All right, so he ends up this way. Then Gray, the Wyoming Republican Party pick for the seat, turned to his fellow heir of a family fortune, Steve Freeze. So now Chuck Gray is the heir to a family fortune, all right? And Steve Freeze, there's no question about that one, who's written the largest check of his campaign, $2 million so far. Quote, I'm not spending as much as Mr. Freeze over here with the Jackson element. Now, the people moderating the debate, it says he was cut short for breaking the rules. Why would you have a debate that one of the rules is you cannot specifically question the people that you're running against? I mean, that kind of means that it's not a debate. That you can participate, but you can't question anything that anybody else has done. No, you just have to talk to the audience. Well, then it's not a debate. And that's not to say that attacking your opponent is a debate, but if you're going to go back and forth and talk about policy, you have to be able to refer to your opponent, which is why when I ran the debates in Sheridan County, I told everybody, Ken, you can fact check me on this one if you want, but I told everybody, okay, let's keep it above the belt, and we can have some back and forth, but let's try to keep this professional. Did I not say that? Or something to that effect.
Something to that effect, and it stayed primarily cordial.
It did, for the most part. And but when you have
a lot of people think that if you state a fact,
right,
it puts them in a bad light that you're attacking.
Right, I mean it's absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, the point here in this piece is it's not about actually telling you what happened. This is Mike Koshmirl's his rendition of what happened there. Let's hear. Candidates who haven't benefited as much from their own wealth and family largesse bemoaned the trend in Wyoming politics. Is this guy writing for The View, or is he trying to say what's happening in Wyoming politics? Let's see here. Quote, we're creating a situation where millionaires and billionaires can buy their way into office, says Kevin Christensen, who has brought in only $13,000. Here's the thing about fundraising. If you are not doing well in the polls, people are not going to donate to you. If there's no chance of you winning, they're not going to give their hard-earned money to you, which is why Kevin Christensen has only raised $13,000. And what's interesting is being the very liberal guy that he is, and I think that he's shown that. He did a good job on this program, but if I've got several pictures of him hanging out with socialist Sam Mead and Gail Simmons and Melissa Butcher. I mean, he's clearly not the conservative that he, portrays himself. But it's also interesting that he's not getting a lot of donations from anybody else. I think that's very telling. On this program, when Brent was in here, did I not ask him about his campaign fundraising?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
and folks, 13,000 is a little low for a state senate. A state senate campaign.
Yeah, you can't even send out.
Yeah.
You can't even come anywhere close to sending out a mailer.
Yeah, you're just not even a player. And I hate to say that because it shouldn't be about money, but quite frankly, it is in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Well, and it's, David, vice chairman of the Republican Party, David always said that money is the mother's milk of politics. That you can't play the game if you don't have cash, and if you don't have a good solid message and a strong campaign, people are not going to donate.
Yeah, there's so much noise out there that you have to buy your way onto the stage.
Which, I mean, it's a kind of a sad commentary, but it has always been that way, right? You can't tell me that Abraham Lincoln didn't have somebody helping him, with his with his whistle stop tours and his campaigning. That's just. I think it's a sad fact, but it is a fact
of American politics that you've got to have campaign donations to be competitive. And so, if you're going to be leading the race, it's going to cost you a crap load of money. Especially, I think, what do we figure, Ken, that to do a statewide mailer, it was like $120,000?
Yeah, I think we were somewhere in that neighborhood. And I don't know. A lot of it, of course, depends on what you send, but say a postcard.
Yeah, one of these, like cardstock and nice printing and full color. Those are top dollar there. As are the Americans for Prosperity mailers too.
It is staggering, and it's so disingenuous for them on the other side to talk about all the dark money coming in out of Jackson or whatever, and all that. It pales in comparison to what AFP is putting.
Yeah, it's not even close.
It's ridiculous.
And it used to be that you could run a state house legislative campaign for $5,000 to $7,000.
Yep,
somewhere around there.
That's what I was told when I first considered it.
Yeah, maybe a Senate seat cost you 12, 15, something like that. Not anymore. Now you're not going to touch a state legislative race for probably under 20. I think that's probably on the cheap too. And a state Senate race, I think probably 30, 40. I know 2 years ago, Mark Jennings spent 35, and his opponent spent well over 80. But there again, Ken, your first race, your opponent, they spent about $100,000 trying to beat you.
Yeah, God only knows what they're spending against me right now. But the numbers will come out here in about a week, and we'll be able to look at that. And I think folks will be, they'll have things to talk about.
And that is one of the laws that needs to be changed, by the way. And what we're talking about is the campaign finance reports are due 1 week before the primary election, which gives you, really that gives you like 3 days maybe to dig through them. If you're a media type like me, that's not enough time. I don't like filing campaign finance reports. They are kind of a pain in the butt. But I think that you've got to give people an ability to look through who's funding your campaign. Like, Steve Freeze, probably a lot of it is self-funded. Reed Reisner, probably a lot is self-funded. But Chuck Gray, I bet a large portion of his is self-funding too, but there's probably a lot of individual donations in there as well. And then you've got groups like Wyoming, Wyoming Hope.
Yeah, you look at a lot of the longtime incumbents, and they get a lot of PACs. They get a lot of money from various companies or things like that. Or you're going to get some good donors that'll give you $1,500, $3,000 as an individual. And then you get a lot of the $20 to $150, maybe $300.
Right.
Those are the ones you want to look for.
So. Right. All right. Well, my friends, that pretty much burns up another busy broadcast day on the program. Make sure you don't miss a weekend update tomorrow. It's going to be an interview with Lori Bratton. Have a great weekend. And we'll be back with the podcast on Monday and this program on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, my friends, and thank you for watching. I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics.